Welcome to EI for the Age of AI, the podcast where human intelligence meets artificial intelligence. Hosted by Sleiman, psychologist, executive coach, and founder of Holistic Psychology Australia. Join us as we explore how leaders can stay human, lead powerfully, and connect meaningfully in an AI-driven world.
In this special episode, we have a deep conversation with Alaa Dalghan, an AI expert at the forefront of human AI integration in the GCC. In this conversation, we talk about the resistance many are feeling when it comes to embracing and adopting AI in an optimal way. We talk about the ethical risks and we call out the elephant in the room with regards to unethical use of AI and the risks that we need to mitigate. We also talk about case studies where companies are adopting AI in an optimal way by enhancing their efficiencies and freeing up time for creativity and innovation. We talk about biases and also, very importantly, we talk about the need for leaders to develop their soft skills, which are hard to develop. However, developing these skills is vital in the age of AI to optimize that human machine interface that we are all experiencing right now. Welcome to the EI for the Age of AI podcast. Today, I'm joined by a leader who's been at the intersection of innovation, technology, and transformation for nearly 2 decades, Alaa Dalghan. Alaa is an AI expert helping companies and government organizations prepare for the age of AI. He's a keynote speaker and someone who deeply understands the digital transformation is not just about tools, it's about people, trust, and courageous leadership. Alaa, it's a pleasure to have you here for the EI in the Age of AI podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Sleiman. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me.
Amazing, amazing. The reason why we are doing this podcast is to enable leaders to optimize their human intelligence in the age of artificial intelligence. We want to optimize that hybrid human machine interaction. And I believe that by being proactive in this sense, we can place them in their best positions possible. You've helped some of the region's top leaders embrace emerging technology, from AI to smart cities, Ala. In your experience, what's been the biggest human barrier that leaders face when stepping into embracing AI and digital transformations?
Great question. I would have to say the comfort zone, Sleiman.
Yeah.
People are so comfortable in their comfort zone, and for most people, the default reaction to any transformation or any even shorter term change, let alone longer transformation, is resistance, right? So obviously, a good leader and a successful leader is someone who embraces a transformation, but who is also able to lead and guide his or her team along the path of transformation and through the windy and stormy seas of transformation. But yes, we always say that any transformation journey has three components. Okay, you have to transform your business processes, you have to transform your technology, and you have to transform your people. And the people transformation has always been proven to be the most challenging part because people are usually comfortable with the way they're doing things and they have been doing things for a long time. And it's not trivial to get them to adopt new ways, new methods, and new goals.
Why do you think that is, that huge resistance to the adoption? Why do you think that's existing and what's the consequence of it from your perspective?
Well, I think it's just human nature, isn't it?
Mm,
I mean, we love familiarity, we love predictability, and even though we also have the other side of the human nature where we love adventure and exploration, but you will find that most people, especially in a career context or in an office context, err on the conservative side of things. Yeah, people would look at any new transformational journey with a skeptic eye, thinking, listen, we have been doing this for a long time, it's working, I'm used to it, I'm comfortable with it. People think that transformation might affect them negatively, or they just fear the unknown. So you'll always see this resistance at first. But again, I think that leaders with a clear vision and a clear objective to about where the destination is should lead with a firm approach, but with also an approach that is bringing everybody along the transformation journey.
mm. So there's the conservative nature of people that holds them back from truly adopting this great technology that we live in. And I guess, from our perspective, this is a strength over index, the strength of being cautious, the strength of being prudent, the strength of being conservative. But in the age of AI, where things are moving exponentially fast, that's what we're seeing. What's the risk if leaders don't adapt and don't develop this adaptive leadership style, do you think?
Oh, the risk is clear, Sleiman. They're going to be left behind, and their organization is going to be left behind. We are at we are witnessing a new wave of change driven by AI that is progressing at a faster speed than anything I've seen. Yeah. So I've been in the technology business for 20 years. And even before I started my professional career, I witnessed multiple waves that transformed the world, right? You and me, we're from the generation that first saw the internet. We saw the world before the internet, and then we saw what the internet did to the world. We then saw the transformational aspect of social media and social networks. We then saw the mobile platform, not just the mobile devices, also changing the world. But all of these waves changed the world in an unprecedented speed for their times. And by that, I mean 10 years for the internet, 5 years for social media, maybe a couple of years for mobile. AI has changed the world in weeks. Okay, AI advancements in the past less than 3 years. Since ChatGPT came on the market 30th of November 2022, the rate of change has been unprecedented. I mean, just look at what's happening this week, Sleiman. Last night, before I went to sleep, at around 10 p.m. Dubai time, OpenAI launched GPT-5. This is a huge advance. I mean, I just spent a couple of hours before I sleep in that just watching the launch of GPT-5. 2 days before, they launched two open source models from OpenAI. And then Saudi Arabia adapted them immediately in Humane and ran them on their inferring center in Saudi Arabia. 2 days before that, Google released Genie, which is an AI that allows you to use text prompts to create worlds, like gaming worlds that you can navigate and you can see in 360 dimensions. The number of new innovations and new breakthroughs that is coming every week is unprecedented in history. So back to your question. If you have this immense, this crazy rate of change happening today, what is the risk for you as a leader and for your organization? Well, there's risk on the organization side and the business side, and then there's risk on the personal side. On the organizational side, if you don't adopt this change and find a way to incorporate all these new technologies and tools in your business, you will be much less competitive than your competitors in the industry and the market, because guess what, they are not going to be waiting. And then there's the personal dimension. You as a leader, you have to upskill on these new tools, whether to augment your own productivity as a person, or to understand better their strategic importance for your company strategy, for your business strategy, for your goals, for your vision.
Mm. So in a way, every leader are going to go on their hero's journey. They have this challenge, they have this quest that they need to embrace and adapt. I guess I could say, like it or not, that's the era that we're going through. It's exponential, it's unprecedented. And so the ideal then is an optimal adaptation of artificial intelligence and its efficiency and automation and deep learning. Now, as they traverse that terrain, they are facing these fears that you mentioned. There's resistance, there's uncertainty, there's we haven't done this before kind of mindset. Where do we start? Other leaders might be overly driven and using it over and above what it's meant to be operating at, and maybe they're burning out, or maybe they're not clear about their strategy. So if we think about the ideal and then the current challenge, what does an ideal look like for these organizations when they are embracing AI and they are competitive? What are some examples that you've seen that you said, yes, this is a great case study where, they haven't lost their human edge, they've maintained their emotional intelligence, and they've embraced this, they've got that balance right. What have you seen in your work? We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all new, Sleiman. People are still experimenting with all of these new technologies and all these new tools and what they mean. But I've seen firsthand companies who work in advertising and marketing use AI tools to increase the speed by which they can prepare proposals, prepare strategies, prepare answers to RFPs. I've seen creatives being able to prototype fast multiple ideas of short videos or films or brand images. You know how in the past, the creative departments used to be limited to 2 or 3 prototypes before they decide, because building a prototype in itself takes a lot of time. So they would spend few days creating a couple of prototypes, and then they will have to choose between those 2 or 3 prototypes and then spend weeks or months developing it. Now, with AI tools, they're able to do much more rapid prototyping. So they can spend just hours to come up with 10, 15, 20 different prototypes, and then quickly decide or iterate on them before they decide which creative direction they want to go in. Rapid prototyping is one of the biggest benefits of this era of generative AI. I'm also seeing companies who have a huge storage of old documents, whether they're paper documents or whether they are, those old photocopiers documents, and digitizing them has always been a challenge. And now with Gen AI, especially having vision and text capability, this has been transformed into an easy task. I mean, the examples are everywhere. I'm seeing it in banks. I'm seeing it with architects and construction companies. There's there are companies in architecture, project management, and construction who spend a lot of time reading a drawing, an AutoCAD drawing, and copying items manually to an Excel sheet. And now AI is allowing them to do that, at 10x speed. So all of these examples are a proof that AI, even in its infancy, is able to create a big impact. But I would like to go back to the first sentence you said, which is amazing, which you called it the hero journey. And you're absolutely spot on, Sleiman, because a leader is someone who has this personality trait and characteristic of a hero who can go on a journey and lead his fleet and his army on a journey, not just alone. That's one of the big differences between a leader and a manager, right? A manager can keep the lights on and can guarantee sustainability, but nothing new, nothing exciting, nothing in the direction of growth, nothing in the direction of disruption. A leader, on the other hand, is this hero that can, lead his team into new ventures and new territories. The key here is that this leadership should be very well planned. So what I advise leaders to do is three things. Number one, educate yourself first on what all these technologies are capable of today. Number two, start by identifying your business priorities and your business problems and your business use cases, regardless of whether they are, can be solved with AI or technology or non-technology. And three, chart a roadmap to these new territories, a roadmap of your hero's journey, so that you're not leading your team and your army and your troops blindly.
That's beautiful, beautifully said. Educate yourself on the capability that AI is able to provide. Clarity comes before strategy. When I worked in the government here in Australia, we worked on capability development. And even though there were so many products out in the market that we could use, you could not just jump in and get the flashiest, the most advanced technology because it may not suit your strategy. So, what happens if leaders don't have the clarity before adopting artificial intelligence? What could be the risk? Let's call the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Well, the lowest risk or the smallest risk is their initiative will fail. And their biggest risk will be that their entire team or entire company will fail. If you proceed blindly into any new thing without clear objectives, clear roadmap, and clear metrics to measure progress and success, well, this is a recipe for disaster. So it's one thing to experiment within a safe test bed. And I do advise all leaders to set up a test bed for innovative ideas and test it outside of productions, right? Prototype as much as you want, POCs as much as you want, because this is part of the learning step. But once you decide to embark on what you call the hero journey, which is the actual strategic move from where we are today to where the company should be positioned in the AI era. Once you decide to do that, you should have already gotten a very good idea of where you are now, what are your current capabilities, where you want to be, and what technology like AI and others can help you with along the road, and then plot a very clear roadmap from where you are to where you want to be, and then follow with confidence and intent this roadmap. This way, you're not just leading your team and your organization into a risky future. There's always risks, but there's the balance of calculated risk, estimated risk, educated risk, okay, where it's the reward when it's clarified and when it's set clearly and when it's when it's measured, it's much more rewarding than the risk you're taking.
Often there's an elephant in the room that we need to call out. And what I've been researching and talking to others about is the ethical use of AI and the importance of keeping that in check and being mindful of it. Tell us about best practice in ethical use of AI that you advise leaders to adopt.
Well, the literature on the ethical and responsible AI is still very nascent. So I know a couple of PhDs who are pursuing their doctorate on the ethics of AI. And you know, in any doctorate, you do a study of the previous literature first. And most of these guys are finding that the previous literature is shallow to non-existent. It's a new domain, it's a new expertise that is being created now, the ethical and the responsible implications of AI. But let's stick to the practical uses inside of an organization. Leaders should be educated not only on the upside and promise of AI, but also on the downside and risk and pitfalls of AI, to know how to mitigate them properly. I would cite examples like fake news, like deep fakes, like irresponsible use of AI results that are hallucinated without checking or verifying the sources. I would also cite things like intellectual property. This is not something that a leader on his own or her own can answer because this is a societal question. Okay. If these large language models are being trained on the art style of every artist in the world, and the poetry style and the literature style and the writing style of every writer in the world, is it ethical and is it legal to ask your ChatGPT, write me a blog in the style of Sleiman, or paint an image in the style of Van Gogh or Picasso or even any living artist? So these are questions that we need to wrestle with, not just as organizational leaders, but as a society. Yeah. Then you have the question of biases. You know that AI is trained on data, and the data that ChatGPT and all these large language models have been trained on is the internet. And a lot of data on the internet is curated, but a lot of it is not curated. And you don't have time to clean the entire internet before feeding it to your AI. That's the risk you're taking with unsupervised learning, which is how ChatGPT or these large language models were trained. It's called unsupervised learning. So what the result is you inherit, as a large language model, it inherits all the biases that are embedded in our data, the data that humans produced. Imagine GPT being trained on Reddit or subreddits or on tweets or on blog posts. So these blog posts are the fruit of thoughts of humans, and humans have biases. It's inevitable that AI will inherit some of these biases. How to mitigate against that? That's also an ethical question. Then you have the question of AI making decisions. And then you start thinking whether this is ethical or not. Let's say you want to have AI analyze a large number of CVs and filter them before you, Sleiman, can interview only the shortlisted ones. How can we make sure that AI is not filtering out a certain demographic or a certain ethnicity or a certain age group or a certain gender because it was trained on data on the internet with practices that we might not agree with. Yeah. How, let's say you are conducting a psychometric test to one employee or one leader or one person of interest. Okay. How sure are we that if we use AI to conduct this psychometric test and analysis, that it's going to be, the right decision? That we're not only outsourcing important decisions with human impact and life impact to a cold machine that, yes, it can be objective and mathematical and scientific, but it can also be polluted by biases inherited from training data. So all of these are questions that I don't claim to have clear and precise answers for. I can only tell you that everybody is wrestling with these questions today.
And they're complex challenges to wrestle with. One thing that
Absolutely.
caught my attention is when AI grabs all the data from the internet, and some of it, a lot of it is evidence based and scientific, other data is not. And so that necessarily presents us with the challenge of critical thinking and understanding how good is this information that we've been given,
Mm,
and,
mm,
and having that, executive functioning, which is usually in the frontal lobe of our brains, to critically think. Now, the research is coming out from the university is saying that students are depleting in their
mm,
critical thinking because some
mm,
are over relying on artificial intelligence answers and instructions. So the risk I'm seeing is that there could be an inevitable future where two things are going to be colliding, that AI is going to be providing us with a lot of solutions and,
mm,
superb in being efficient in providing those solutions. And the human brain is going to be depleting its critical analysis. So being a connoisseur of the data that we are researching. I mean, I remember
mm,
doing this back in undergrad psychology. There was 2 or 3 units specifically on the critical analysis and the consumption of
mm,
the research out there, making sure
mm,
that it's randomized controlled trials and good
mm,
science that's behind it. So, what are your thoughts about that? And how can leaders be proactive in
mm,
enabling critical thinking to their team, to
mm.
themselves, in order for us to optimize that AI integration? Tell me about yeah, I see you nodding.
Yeah,
It's an important topic,
yeah.
I think.
So yeah, this alone could take a full podcast, but let me try to answer it in a concise way. So I do agree with you that this risk has a non-zero probability where AI depletes our critical thinking. But I don't agree with the word that you use, that is inevitable.
Mm,
I think that it's pretty much evitable, right?
mhm,
That future. Let's start with your first examples about college students. I also talk to teachers in schools and in colleges, and they tell me, Ala, I give them an essay and they come back and they present me almost all their essays. I can tell that they were written by ChatGPT. How can I grade them from now on? And I don't claim to have all the answers, but I give some ideas, some suggestions. One of these suggestions is, instead of me asking my student to go write an essay and then grade the written essay, no, I will ask my student to go and research and write the essay. But then when he or she comes to class, they go and stand in front of everybody and they present their findings and they explain the fruit of their research over the past week in 10 minutes or less to the rest of the class. And their job is to pass the knowledge and summarize the knowledge they have learned over the past week of doing the research to their colleagues. And then they have to field questions from their colleagues asking about particular things, and they have to answer. And then each and every one of the students has to do the same with their part of the research. That's one way to ensure that your student is actually understanding the subject, not just outsourcing its writing to ChatGPT. Here's another example. Okay, instead of me telling my students, go research this topic and do not use ChatGPT. No, I will say the opposite. I will say, go research this topic with the help of ChatGPT. Go study for a week this topic with the help of ChatGPT. And then I want you to come back. I want you to stand in front of the class and I want you to present what ChatGPT thought about this topic. And then I want you to critique what ChatGPT thought about this topic and present a different view or debate it or critique and present some nuances or take a different approach to it. So that's another way where we can also make sure that AI is not depleting our critical thinking. Some of these tactics can be applied in an organization as well. It doesn't have to be only for schools and universities. A leader, in my opinion, who tells their team you should not use AI or ChatGPT, they're making a mistake. Okay. They have to embrace the use of these AI tools, but use similar methods and similar tactics to ensure that their team is actually delivering the value expected from them, right? I'll give one last example. I was delivering a master class in Lagos in Nigeria to a leading telecom operator. And I was presenting the idea of a ChatGPT or your AI can be your co-creation buddy when you want to create a product plan. So I prompted ChatGPT, you are a product manager working for a leading telecom company in Nigeria, and I would like you to build a product strategy and go-to-market strategy for a new AI-based offering that the company can pitch to banks, right? And AI opened Canvas and started building this product strategy and go-to-market strategy and phased plan. And I heard some nervous chuckles in the audience. And I looked and there are a couple of product managers and they were joking nervously that we lost our jobs. And I told them, absolutely not. Your job is not to create a document. You're not hired to create a document. You're hired because of your knowledge, your expertise, your brain. This 10, 15, 20 years knowledge that you gathered about your market, about your culture, about the needs and capabilities of your clients, about the needs and capabilities of your company, that's not something AI is going to do. Let AI create the skeleton, let it create the first draft, but anyone who reads this draft will know it's thin. When you sit and add your brain and your expertise and your experience to this draft, it becomes rich and it becomes valuable. And your value is this. It's not writing the document, right?
I love that. I love that. There's 2 points that I want to bring up on that. The first one is about leveraging the leader's expertise in the market and the product knowledge to use the power of AI to optimize that user experience, to optimize customer experience and evolve that. And one thing you said that prompted a reflection on the leadership style. At Holistic Psychology Australia, we run a lot of leadership development programs and we distinguish the different types of leadership styles that a leader needs to apply in different situations. Some situations, the leader needs to be directive. some situations the leader needs to be visionary, and maybe AI is such a case. You need to envision people and help them see, the optimal. And often, what we're training leaders on now is coaching style of leadership,
Yes, yes.
facilitating the best out of people so they can solve the problems themselves, so they can be their own change agents, which has been really beneficial in change management and change leadership. So, what we are seeing here is a call to action, so to speak, a call to arms for a different type of leadership style for the leaders to adopt, which is the coaching, the facilitative,
Mhm, mhm.
leveraging to the story that you said with the university students and the lecturers. They're seeing, you said the optimal thing to do is to understand the research, explain it to others, stress test it, ideate, innovate, reflect, integrate, and then apply and reiterate.
Mm,
So
mm,
there's a real opportunity here for leaders to develop a
mm, mm.
facilitative coaching style of leadership, particularly in the age of exponential growth of AI.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sleiman. Listen, what you call it coaching, mentorship, this is an essential tool in the tool belt of any leader in the 21st century, even before AI, and now more so with AI. A leader should be able to get educated, but then educate. He or she should be able to articulate and communicate and able to bring and excite and inspire their team to come along the journey with them. So let's take them one by one. When a new wind of change happens, like the wind of change of AI today, the first job of a leader is to educate himself or herself first and then educate others. Okay, so that's part of the coaching or the mentorship you're talking about, because fear is most of the time caused by a lack of education, by ignorance of what is actually happening. And education clears a lot of these fears. What you understand, you fear less, even if it's scary and transformative and disruptive. So, yes, the first job of a leader is to understand, in this case, AI, educate himself or herself on AI, and then come back and educate the team. Once that education once that education happens, the next step is communicate. The leader, based on that common education now, is able or should be able to communicate clearly and to explain clearly where we are now and where we want to be in that age of AI. Okay. He or she should be a very good storyteller and a very good and clear and precise communicator that articulates well why we're doing this and where are we heading. And last but not least, he or she should also be inspirational to, be able to rally the troop along that, clearly charted and education fueled roadmap.
Yeah, love that advice. Love that advice. So bringing it all together, I mean, we can talk for days, I think. I love this conversation.
Me too.
There's a there's a great opportunity that once in a lifetime, it's probably the biggest thing since discovering fire, and it's how we use it. We can get burnt by it, or we can freeze to death if we're not using it correctly. So the leaders are essentially on their hero's journey, and he, she, or they need to, develop the right skills to optimize that. There are ethical decisions, ethical requirements that we need to look at, and upskilling the leaders themselves and their teams to optimize this human machine integration. there is a
Good.
risk of falling behind. And for those who may be copy pasting, then yeah, that is a risk. It's like a wake up call to many. It's a bit like the frog in the boiling water, right? If you're not aware of what's happening, could get boiled to death. Like, so, excuse the expression, but that is a risk. There's a burning platform here. I love what you're doing in inspiring and educating organizations and government departments in this optimization of age of AI. Ala, is there a piece of advice that you would like to share with the leaders listening to our AI for the Age of AI podcast to enable them to optimize this?
Yes. Upskilling, upskilling, upskilling. The most important skill of this century and this era is the skill to upskill. Also, the skill to unskill and shed away some unneeded skills. But upskill, upskill, upskill. Start by upskilling yourself first as a leader, and then make sure to run or to pass this knowledge and upskilling to all of your team and all of your employees and all of your organizations. Upskilling is the vaccine against the coming threats of AI. Many people say, I'm fearful that AI will take jobs because I think AI will take most jobs. And I always counter with AI will not take 50% of jobs. AI will take 50% of tasks of 100% of jobs. But these will be the tasks that that are repetitive, that are soul crushing, that nobody wants to do, and we will have more time to do the tasks that require creativity and innovation and imagination, and this is a good thing. So if your job is mostly automatable or repeatable, like what you mentioned, Sleiman, if your job is mostly tasks that are copy and paste, then yes, AI will take your job. But most people don't do that. Most people can elevate their skills beyond what AI can touch. And we're only talking about the IQ dimension of the skills. But we should also mention the EQ dimension of the skills. You know what? It turns out that soft skills are really, really hard, Sulaiman. Yeah. So AI is advancing on most benchmarks when it comes to IQ. But when it comes to EQ, when it comes to conflict resolution or leadership or empathy or understanding the human state of mind, no, it's clearly that humans still have a clear upper hand. So upskill yourselves and upskill your team and upskill everybody in the organization, and especially focus on upskilling or on gaining skills that are above the current or future level of AI. Focus on soft skills, not just on hard skills.
I love that. And for the audience, soft skills are examples such as self awareness in a leader, understanding his or her emotions, thoughts, beliefs, unconscious processes, self regulation and self management, empathy and social understanding, and what you mentioned very wisely, conflict resolution and relationship management. You don't want to kind of delegate that to AI to have a conversation on your behalf, because a lot of
No,
learning happens by mastering conflict between people. And that's something we're very proud of at Holistic Psychology Australia to be teaching. Ala, I want to deeply
absolutely.
thank you for an engaging and meaningful conversation. And
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. That was very enjoyable, Simon.
and I'm sure we'll speak again for the benefit of the leaders out there.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of EI for the Age of AI and keep listening for more insights.
Until then, stay sharp, stay adaptive, and stay human.